Welcome to the Sports Talk with the Byalls. Each week we'll discuss, debate, and answer tough questions in the sports world. During this week's show, we will recap college basketball, the NBA All-Star Game, and preview the upcoming week in college basketball. Austin, what were your overall thoughts on this past weekend in sports?
You know, I thought the big thing this week was UConn's dominating win over Marquette. I think it kind of shocked a lot of people. I think people thought Marquette would compete a little bit more than they actually did, and you know, it surprised me. I thought it would be a pretty decent game. I knew UConn would probably win that game, as you know, me and Zach both picked them this week or last week to win, but I don't know, that was a big shocker for me. And then another one was Kentucky's big win over Auburn. They really hadn't had that, I guess, big win recently. I mean, they've been struggling defensively, and that was, I thought, a really big win for that program. And then Ohio State's win over Purdue.
Yeah.
Purdue has not been playing well recently, and I think that kind of showed.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the games this week didn't live up necessarily to the hype that they had. You mentioned the UConn Marquette game. Previously, the number 1 ranked team versus the number 4 ranked team, you'd expect it to be a closer game than 81-53, which it was not. But I mean, that's sometimes how it is. I mean, when UConn's that dominant, they're gonna be hard to beat night in, and so I think that was a massive surprise. And you mentioned Purdue. I mean, we'll talk about Purdue later, but for you, let's actually jump into Purdue. For Purdue, do you think over the last couple weeks they've been struggling? What do you think the problem is?
I think the shooting for them has been the problem recently. They're shooting not too well from the three-point line lately. And Zach Edey, again, I think he's been in foul trouble a couple of these games where he's had to sit, and when he's had to do that, it messes up Purdue's offensive scheme. I mean, people would understand that, but just knocking down shots, Purdue's going to have to do that. If they don't do that, the same thing's going to happen that happened last year, I think, in the tournament. So I think they did help themselves this year. They're better than they were last year, definitely, on the guard and wing perspective. But, yeah, they're going to have to knock down some shots.
Yeah, I feel like last year, one of the things that I talked about when they lost in the first round FTU was the fact that they shot terrible from three that game. And they hadn't necessarily been shooting that well from three over the last couple weeks. And that a lot of it has to do with Fletcher Lawyer and Lance Jones, who necessarily didn't play their best game on Sunday. I think they were combined maybe 4 of 18 or something like that. And so that's a massive part because Fletcher Lawyer, the thing with him is like he's played well in some games. He played well in the Tennessee game, and I'm trying to remember the other game. I think it was Arizona. He played really well in, and so I mean for Purdue to have success, they're gonna have to knock down shots. Obviously, with Zach Edey, he's gonna see a double team likely, and then Ohio State, credit to them, they did a really good job of. He would put it down low. They stripped him probably 3 or 4, maybe more times when he was down in the paint. But I think with them another thing is the fact that the dynamic guards who can play one ball screens have had really good games against them. You look at Tyler Kolek in the Maui, and then look at Caleb Love when they came here and played in Indianapolis, and then Marcus Sears and when they played Alabama. They won those 3 games. And then at Boo Booey, that game at Purdue, and even at Northwestern, he had a really good game both times. So, and then Bruce Thornton this week had a really nice game for Ohio State. So I think with Purdue is the fact that if they see a team who has a dynamic guard who can create on all 3 levels, that they're going to struggle. Just the fact that you have to put Edey out in ball screens and stuff like that. So that is a massive part. You mentioned Kentucky. Now, obviously, the last couple weeks I picked Kentucky, and obviously the week I don't pick Kentucky, they win. For them, the struggle was defensively. This week, they defensively was their reason why they kind of won this game. Yeah,
they're a weird team, I'm going to tell you. Kentucky, they're so inconsistent on defense perspective and just the way they play. Earlier on the season, they were already ranked 5 or 6 in the country.
Yeah,
and people were saying this Kentucky team's back, and they're going to be national title contender again. And then they just fell off a cliff for a little bit there, but they have the talent. Every year they pretty much have the talent. It's just can they get flowing together, and can the younger guys, get going.
Yeah.
And their defenses, I think, is a big part of that. Again, I think it's another thing with North Carolina too. If their defense as well, if their defense is flowing, they're definitely a national title contender as well.
Yeah, well, I'll stick with Kentucky here. Offensively, when those guys play well, there's no one probably better, maybe a couple teams better than them. Like that, you bring Reed Shepherd and Dillingham off the bench. Those guys are all NBA, going to be first-round draft picks next year. Those guys are elite scorers. And so with them, defensively was a problem. You can't get 100 points at home in Tennessee and expect to win. Yeah. Your offense can only do so much when that happens. So if Kentucky can fix that, then they honestly could be a Final Four team. But I don't necessarily if I put full trust into them stepping defensively every single night. Or let's move on to the overall the top 16 that the NCAA committee released this week. The top 16, if you don't know, is NCAA releases the top 4, all the top 4 seeds. So 16 teams, and if the tournament started today, this is what the seeding would be. Who do you think was too high in this week's ranking?
I'm going to go with Wisconsin, just even being in the top 4. They were the last team in, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they even were in. They're 6 or 7 seed right now. I'm sorry. This team has lost 5 out of 6. I mean, before that, they lost 4 out of 5 before Saturday. Again, so, I mean, I understand, like, this loss this weekend didn't count, but I mean, they had losses like Michigan and bottom dwellers of the Big Ten. And I just don't see it. I don't see how you can put a team in like that. And then another team is probably Auburn. I mean, they don't really have too big of wins, in my opinion, to be in the top 4. I think there's teams that have better wins that could have maybe squeaked up there, like Creighton or something like that.
Yeah, I was looking yesterday. I think I saw that Auburn has maybe one quality win, which is home to Alabama. And then they have a quad away win to Ole Miss. But really one quality win, home to Alabama. So, I mean, I kind of agree with that. But Auburn will slide down since they lost to Kentucky at home. But some of the other teams that will slide is Purdue will drop probably the number 1 overall spot. It'll probably go to UConn, and then Marquette will drop. They'll probably stay at 2 line, but they'll be the last 2 seed, and because their blowout loss to UConn this week. But I think some of the teams that will rise, obviously, that UConn will rise to the top with the number 1 overall seed after they won 10 games in a row, or how many? Long, more than that.
Started January. I think.
And then I think Kansas will rise with their win over the weekend. But we looked at we were talking about I don't know if we talked about on the show, but we talked about Iowa State recently, how their non-conference schedule might hurt them, and there haven't been many who have said they might deserve a 2 seed. Well, they were the 3rd 3 seed, and I believe that's fully that their non-conference schedule wasn't good enough, and I think the NCAA tournament values that. They also value road wins, and people were questioning why North Carolina is the number 1 2 seed. I know you told me that this weekend when it was released. It's like, how is North Carolina number 2 seed? And I was kind of thinking North Carolina would be the 2 or 3 2 seed, but North Carolina is the AC right now leading the ACC, has really good road wins, and I think they've only lost 2 road games all season. Not a lot of teams have that. And then obviously their non-conference schedule is strong. So I think the NCAA committee values road wins. Who's leading your
road wins do North Carolina have?
At Clemson.
But they didn't put on the road in the non-ACC
at
though.
North Carolina State, at Pitt. Well, no one plays on non-conference games on the road unless you play in a challenge.
Unless you play on the road.
Not unless you play in a challenge. There's no teams not playing on the road.
Most teams do.
Unless you're playing in a challenge, you're not playing on the road.
Well, North Carolina did, and they played them all at home. So.
Oh, well, I don't make.
Or they play them in Greensboro, so it's pretty much a home game.
That's a neutral site game.
That's a home game.
Well, it counts as a neutral site game. All right, well that was that. How did Butler play this week in Austin?
Not well.
All right, that's what I thought. All right, let's move on to the NBA All-Star Weekend. I usually spend a lot of time watching this. I enjoy watching the All-Star Weekend. I think there's a lot of things that are exciting. But also, what was your favorite part from the All-Star Weekend?
Definitely the 3-point contest. Any more with the dunk contest, it's just a jump over Shaq or something out there. So it just gets boring. In my opinion, you need to get some of the main guys out there, not the G League guys. Not everybody knows who those are if you're not a avid watcher of the NBA. So I love the 3-point contest. Everybody had like 26 points or 26 points in the first round, and it came down to the end and Dame won, which back to back, we all know Dame is clutch. So
yeah, the All-Star Weekend started with the celebrity game on Friday night, followed by the Rising Stars game, which is quite interesting. They had 4 different teams. A 2-year team, a rookie team, a G League team, and I forget what was the other team. I don't remember.
The G League team beat Wemby and all that.
The G League team beat the rookie team, and that said we were watching that. I was like, Austin, the worst thing that could happen is if the G League team wins this, and they did. But that's what it is. And then the celebrity game, Micah Parsons is completely dominated. I think one thing we have to realize with these athletes is Puka and C.J. Stroud and Parsons all played, and with McCole Hardman, it's like how freakishly athletic these guys really are. Just go out there and dominating. But I have to agree with Austin. Like my favorite part is the 3-point shooting contest, and I know the dunk contest has always been historically the most exciting. But you mentioned with like the names like Mac McClung, like he obviously he's a great dunker, but it's like we used to have like Michael Jordan, all these guys, and now we have 3 G League guys and Jaylen Brown, who is labeled as a dunker. I wouldn't consider him anywhere near labeled as a dunker, but it was fun. And then obviously Curry versus Sabrina, that was really fun to watch. I mean, I expect that they will do that more with their stars, but especially with Curry and when Caitlin Clark maybe next year and stuff like that. That was fun to see how really dominant those two really are in shooting. And then you mentioned the Lillard winning back-to-back, so that was fun. But let's move to the All-Star game. So obviously there's been a lot of controversy over the NBA All-Star game over the last couple of years with guys not playing hard. And then all offseason, Commissioner in the NBA, Adam Silver, was like, oh, the guys are going to play harder. This game's going to be a lot better. Well, it really wasn't. It was the highest scoring All-Star game ever. So how do you think, and over your overall thoughts, like how do you fix this and over your overall thoughts on the All-Star game?
I think it's very hard to fix the All-Star games anymore, especially when you're doing them like, and just in general. I mean, the Pro Bowl's at the end of the season, but still the All-Star game, and the Pro Bowl still matters because you don't want your players getting hurt. And as like a GM's perspective, these games are something you sit there and watch and bite your tongue when you see one of your players fall to the ground. And yeah, you just don't want anyone getting injured. So I don't know if there's much you can do. Maybe put money involved in it, but the charity-wise, because these players don't really care if they get more money. But if they're going for a charity, it might.
I think there was charity money involved.
Well, then I don't really think there's much you can do.
Yeah.
The GM's perspective, they're going to be telling their players, don't be out there sweating because you go tear your ACL, you're ruining your team.
Yeah. It's just not worth it. Like, the reward don't outplay the risk. And so, but Anthony Davis after the game said, obviously the fans in the league and everybody wants it to be competitive, but then it's also as the players, you think about not getting hurt. And so that's a big part. I don't blame the players. It's like you mentioned, like, don't get out there and get hurt and then your whole season's ruined. But there's not really, like, I saw a clip of, like, it was like 2003 or something. And it was like when Kobe and all them were playing it, and like it was like fully competitive, like 109 to 109 with like 2 minutes left. It's like it's 109 in the first half. And this week in today's game in the All-Star game, but Damian Lillard wins MVP. He's the first player ever to win the 3-point contest and then to win MVP on the same weekend. He finished with 39 points and was 11 to 23 from three. Karl Anthony Towns had the most points for the West with 50 points, shooting 23 to 35. And then Tyrese Halliburton had the hometown player for the Pacers, had 32 points, and it was 11 to 15 and 10 to 14 from the three. And so that was cool to see Tyrese have a good weekend for Indianapolis. And I feel like Indianapolis is a great city to host. I mean, obviously I saw a lot of people complain that, it's freezing in Indianapolis. We should go to Florida. It's going to be warm for the guys. But Indiana's a basketball state, and it's always fun to, even if you aren't an NBA fan, to see some of these guys play and how ridiculously insane some of these guys really, really are at basketball.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and move on to this upcoming week in college basketball. Obviously, last week, caught up on Austin with the picks. Austin is 10-4 now in total picks, and I am 9-5, getting back from 2 games this past week. Those games were I picked Creighton, you picked Butler,
and then I took the long shot of Texas.
Oh yeah, that was
bad.
Yeah, that was.
I was trying to help you out. That's why I picked.
I know. And then I honestly, like, I picked Kentucky to beat Tennessee, picked Kentucky to beat Gonzaga. And then I was like, well, they haven't won at Auburn in a couple of years. Like, Auburn's great at home. They just beat, I think it was South Carolina by 25 points that previous week before Saturday. I was like, okay, then they're going to be. And then,
I don't think anyone was expecting that Kentucky game.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to go like it did. It was low scoring, and then Kentucky kind of won a game that they aren't the games that they've lost before, not being able to play defense and stuff like that. But let's preview some of the games coming up this week. Starting the first game, Houston at Baylor, 12 o'clock on ESPN on Saturday. This is a race for first place in the Big 12 as Baylor sits 1.5 games behind Houston at the top. As Houston won last night against Iowa State. And then Baylor plays tonight at BYU at 9 o'clock. So that'll be a big game for Baylor if they want to stay in this race. Duke at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is trying to pick up its much-needed quad win as Duke looks to stay at top of the ACC with North Carolina and Virginia. Duke plays at Miami tomorrow, and Wake plays home tonight to Pitt. This is next couple games for Pitt, Wake are massively important as they're sitting outside the bubble right now, trying to look to get in. North Carolina at Virginia, 4 o'clock on ESPN. North Carolina looks to get its first win at Virginia in almost 12 years, as Virginia looks to get back on track after getting blown out last night at Virginia Tech, 75-41. That game last night definitely hurt their resume. They're still in the tournament, but they need to pick up this win versus North Carolina this week.
You pick up this win against North Carolina, it don't matter about what happened on
Yeah, they'll pretty much be a lock if they beat Carolina this week. And then the fourth and final game, Alabama at Kentucky, 4 o'clock on CBS. Kentucky looks to continue its win streak as Alabama looks to remain the number 1 team in the SEC. Kentucky plays at LSU tomorrow night, and Alabama plays home to Florida tomorrow. So let's get into these predictions, Austin. Let's go first, Houston at Baylor.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Houston here. I'm not fully sold on Baylor yet. I don't know what their best win is, but I know they have, they lost Michigan State earlier this year, and they've had some bad games, and I think the defense for Houston is just elite. It's on another level, and I think they'll win this game.
Yeah, Houston got a big win last night, home to Iowa State. That certainly put them remaining at the number 1 seed. It's theirs to lose for the number 1 seed this year, but in this game, I'm going to take Baylor at home, especially. I think Baylor is going to be rocking there, and I think that Baylor will come out on top in this one. Let's go Duke at Wake.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wake Forest here. They've been playing a lot better lately, and I think this is a big game for them. Like you said, they can pick up the first quad 1 win. This could help their tournament resume. So they're going to be playing their hearts out here, and I'm going to go with Wake.
Yeah, being a North Carolina fan, I hate Duke, but I'm not going to pick Duke, though. I'm going to pick Wake. I think you mentioned this. This is an important game. These next couple games for Wake are really important as they play, as I mentioned, Pitt tonight. That'll be a big game for Pitt as well, as they're both trying to sneak into the tournament. But with Wake, and they brought in a lot of guys. Hunter South from Gonzaga, he's been their best player this year, and they have multiple weapons around them. And I think with Duke, they have a tough schedule coming up here where they play North Carolina and Virginia. So this game for Duke is important as they want to win the conference and potentially get up to the 2 line for NCAA tournament seeding. But I'm going to go with Wake at home. This is a big one for Wake. North Carolina at Virginia. Austin, as mentioned earlier, North Carolina's won there in 12 years. So let's hopefully North Carolina bounces back this week.
That's why I'm going with Virginia. Again, North Carolina struggles to win there, and they struggle honestly to beat Virginia in general. Their defense every time North Carolina plays them, and Zach gets a little mad because it's a 52-50 game, and not a lot of scoring. And I think that's going to be the difference for these Tar Heels is the defense for Virginia will be elite. They're going to look to bounce back against North Carolina since they got blown out at Virginia Tech last night.
Yeah, I always talk about when we play Virginia. I always say I hate playing Virginia. You get down 5, and it feels like you're down 20 because they just hold the ball for 30 seconds at the shot clock, and then you don't get a rebound. And it's another 20 seconds they hold it. So it's very frustrating. It's playing Virginia. Last year, North Carolina went 1-2 against them, winning at home against them, and losing on the road, and then losing the ACC tournament to finish off their season and not making it. But I'm going to pick North Carolina in this game.
Of course.
And it's because I think North Carolina defensively, in these type of games, Virginia is not an elite scoring team, so which helps North Carolina. And I think if North Carolina can get Mondo go in early and then hit some threes, because when you play Virginia, you want to get up on them. You don't want to ever play down because then it'll drain you out mentally and physically on the defensive end. And I'm going to pick North Carolina. I think offensively hasn't been a problem the last couple of games when we're 2-3 in our last 5 games. I think it's been defensively, and Austin mentioned that. And I think with defensively, I don't think Virginia's an elite offensive team, and I think North Carolina will be able to score on Virginia early in the game. And if they can score on them early in the game, I think they will end up winning this game. Let's move on to the last game, Alabama at Kentucky. Austin, who do you see winning this game?
I see Kentucky winning. I know they struggle at home, but again, I'm going to have to go with Kentucky here just because I think Kentucky will outscore Alabama. Again, this is going to be a high-scoring game. Both these teams, Alabama scores like 100 points half the game, so Kentucky's been scoring up there. So definitely about the over on points scored if you're a betting type of person here because it's going to be a fun game to watch. Definitely if you want to watch a high-level, high-scoring basketball game, this would be the game to watch.
If you like the NBA and you don't like college because of the low scoring, this is certainly your type of tea. Alabama, I think, is number 1 ranked offensive team in the country, and with Kentucky, they have multiple NBA players that they just get up and go. So that'll be a fun game to watch. I'm going to go with Kentucky. That means Alabama's going to win because every time I pick against Kentucky or for Kentucky, they lose or the other team loses. So that'll be fun. I'm excited for this weekend in college basketball. With the March Madness and Champ Week coming up, this is always the most exciting time for college basketball and stuff. And I know this college basketball isn't for everyone, but it's fun. If, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, it's like if you get a team and your team's decent, it's always fun to watch. And I know Austin being a Butler fan, that Butler's trying to battle for an NCAA tournament bid right now. And with Butler, how confident are you in them making the tournament at this point?
I'd say I'm above the 50% tile, but you just don't know what's Butler after last game. It just makes you very sad. But then, we have a lot of opportunities left. Our schedule's not as hard. We don't play any top-ranked teams, but we still have opportunities for quad 1 wins. And as I told Zach yesterday, Butler led the nation in quad 1 games that they played this year, and they're getting 2 more this week. So, again, if they can capitalize off a win this week and win out the next 3 games, which they should have a freebie against DePaul, So if they lose that one, they're out of the tournament, and they got to win their Big East tournament. But
Yep.
they put themselves in position. That's all you want to do as a basketball team for March, and it's the first time Byall's been in position in a while. So I'm excited.
Got to at least get one game this week that they got to win.
Yeah, 100%. If you enjoyed this week's show, make sure to come back next week where we'll recap this week's college basketball games, discuss the last push of the NBA season, and much more. Remember, our show airs every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Now available on YouTube, WJHS Studios.